this is not a discussion about Russia and Ukraine. This is a discussion about trade relations between the European Union on the one hand and its partners to the east. That includes, on the one hand, Russia and two of its partners that have formed a customs union, and then a number of other countries that are, shall we say, neighbours to the European Union and to the customs union. And they are both doing and will be doing trade with both sides. And the question is, how do we organize this in a manner which is compatible with one another and in the end conducive, obviously, to the development of the countries involved.
And actually, what you see clearly is that these countries are very open economies. You know, the openness of the economy measured by the sum of exports and imports to GDP. In Ukraine, it's 87% of GDP. And this is more than in Germany, for example. And Moldova has over 100% openness of its economy. So these are very open economy. And the second point, which is important, is that the exports are very diversified. For example, Ukraine exports 26% to the EU, 30% to the customs union, and more than 40% to third countries. And that's really important because people think they are just between two blocks and then that's all. And the whole world is EU and Russia. And the whole world is much bigger. And actually Ukraine is dealing with China, with India, with the Far East, in all the world. Our first major conclusion and message is that actually there is a way to achieve free trade with the EU and the customs union at the same time. There is a way. And this way is by having parallel free trade agreements with two blocks. The main problem, of course, is that Russia might discontinue the free trade agreement with Ukraine. But actually, for that, there are not real important reasons in economic terms. And that's why I think that Ukraine should have a very strong dialogue with Russia, supported by the EU, to try to avoid trade disruptions with Russia. And this applies also, of course, to Moldova and to Georgia.
I want to present our results of the various Russian integrational options with European preferential trade agreements. If Russia stays outside of any sort of agreement, either free trade agreement of customs unions between Europe and Eastern Partnership, it will lose. Both political aspects need to be taken into account and economic is pro-integration in this direction. Of course, politically it will be more difficult to achieve, but WTO per se is not an obstacle. So free trade agreement and various customs unions are possible to arrange within the WTO, but it needs to be, of course, to be confirmed by WTO. So in this current state, more problems with WTO might be from customs union perspective, because future accession of Kazakhstan and Belarus will definitely affect the way customs union function, because it's the common external tariff need to be changed. Market access conditions that Kazakhstan already proved with WTO members need to be discussed, and how they will match Russian obligations to WTO. So this is more maybe a priority area for Russian trade policy.
Is it possible for a country, we're thinking about Ukraine, but we're not talking about it, is it possible for a country to be associated to both the EU and the Eurasian Union? Associated. And you break it down into three things. One, can a country have a free trade linkage, and I'm not saying free trade area, to two different customs unions at the same time, or is there some mutual incompatibility? Secondly, can a country become a member of two customs unions at any time? Possibly that's not a question anyone is asking, but I'm asking. Third question, can there be a free trade linkage between two customs unions?
What I was saying is that there are some legal difficulties with non-WTO members. I don't think that's insuperable, because there are precedents of deals between members and non-members, and it usually gets resolved because the non-member joins. But in any case, the way that WTO enforces these kind of rules is very flexible. And if nobody complains, if nobody's trade is damaged, you can, I would say, get away with whatever you want to do.
Is the EU interested in a situation where all Eastern partnerships have FTAs with the EU and the customs union? Of course we are. Of course we are. We think that the best world would be one where countries like Ukraine, Georgia, Moldova and others have an FTA with us and deepen their relationship, their economic relationship with Russia, Belarus and Kazakhstan. But the problem has been, before Vilnius, and definitely after Vilnius, is that some say, no. These countries first have to become members of the customs union, and then they can talk to you.
It's one thing to say that this is what we would like. My question is it feasible from really a nitty-gritty viewpoint? Because we can't, as you say rightly, we can't just look at this. If it was only about tariffs, then, okay, we would have an issue about rules of origin. Okay? My rules of origin, the EU rules of origin that I want to have with the Eastern Partnership countries, what does it mean for the rules of origin that those countries would have in their FTA with the customs union? And what does it do to trade flows? And that will be an interesting discussion about how production would be organized in this zone.
Yes, this is going to be a dynamic story, but if, for instance, we can have a common position on international standards, like for instance in car manufacturing, if everyone goes for UN ECE standards, there is no problem. So yes, indeed, in detail, this is going to be pretty complex, but it's not impossible.